So my name is Hamilton Glass, and I'm an artist located in Richmond, Virginia.
I am Noah Scalin, and I am an artist.
My name is Nico Cathcart. I am an artist and muralist here in Richmond, Virginia.
My name is Austin Oz Miles, and I am a painter, muralist, and community public artist here in Richmond, Virginia.
So my name is Ian C. Hess. I've been living here in Richmond for 10 years now. Been a full-time artist for about 5 years.
My name is Jo Warnese Caston. I am a full-time artist. I paint mostly. Sometimes I do a little design work. That's actually where I got started in art.
In the conception of Mending Walls RVA, I really was just kind of looking at all of the protests and the uprising that we're having in 2020 over the George Floyd death. And I went through, like I'm sure everyone went through, a range of emotions between mad and hopeful, if that makes any sense. And I really, through all of it, the common goal was like being able to talk to people. And I think I was noticing that more people were reaching out and for understanding and of the Black experience. And so really what I gained from that was just the need to talk and the need to listen, but also the need for empathy and connection. And I think realizing that now being a time where people are actually are paying attention and starting to see things differently for the first time, empathy and connection are one of the key things that we need to be able to further the conversation. Since there are differences on both sides, if we just, connect and don't empathize, I think we won't really understand what each other are going through.
What we need to talk about is an array of things. This conversation is large. We need to talk about institutional racism. We need to talk about redlining. We need to talk about funding for public schools, especially here in Richmond, where majority of the public schools here are filled with Black and brown students. We need to talk about unconscious bias. We need to talk about equity. So there's so much that needs to go on in this conversation. We need to talk about gun violence. We need to talk about that gun violence is not just a Black issue. Gun violence affects everyone, us as a community. And so that is that's the big question. And I'm expecting that we need to talk with Mending Walls, that there are going to be so many different conversations happening that it's really the start of really moving us forward, because there's such a large area that we need to cover.
My favorite thing has definitely been the conversations that have come out of this. And I know that we're just getting started and there's so many more conversations to have, but I have come in contact with so many people that I know I would have never met otherwise. And I have had heart-to-heart conversations, really vulnerable and honest conversations with complete strangers. That doesn't happen in everyday life. Generally, you say, "Hey, how you doing?" to a stranger, and you barely mean that. You just expect the answer, "I'm fine," and you continue going. But with this project, it's been different. It's been taking the time to actually get to know a complete stranger whom I may or may not see again, and leaving with a new perspective.
What I like about the Mending Walls project is it's about collaboration. And I think that really is the key to our success in the future. If you want to talk about what the future looks like, it's one where we all learn to work together a lot better. And that it's not about a bunch of people just screaming their opinions and being further and further sort of pushed into echo chambers of like-minded people. It's a real dangerous thing that we've created for ourselves, and we're seeing the result of it right now. And I think we can't move forward with only a tiny percentage of our culture on the same page. So how do we get there? That's through education and dialogue.
I can't overstate the importance of people having a willingness to engage with things that they don't want to be true. I think there's harsh truths of the world, and it's easy to just outright reject them, push them away, isolate, or compartmentalize. But a real willingness to dialogue and engage with the tough truths of the world is vital moving forward.
I think the thing that we both reacted to really strongly was the writing on the monument and how that provided the context that has long been the conversation in the city about these, monuments to the Confederacy. The words on the monument were really strong, and because they were not filtered through, a public art filter, that they were just done in the heat of the moment, there wasn't any censorship in it, and that's kind of beautiful. It was the voice of the people, the voice of the oppressed coming out. And so we decided to use that kind of language as the background, the pillar to start this piece. All the stuff that we wrote were things that we had seen on the monuments. And then from that, we kind of wanted to talk about going forward, how we can do this with solidarity between each other, because to move forward as a city, I think we both felt that it can't just be, a Black movement. It can't just be white people talking about it. It has to be together. And from that, we kind of thought about, what are on the top of those monuments, and that is, old white men on horses. So we wanted to kind of reclaim that imagery. And I know that we both kind of like to center on women. We're both kind of coming out of the intersectional feminist movement. So, we were thinking about the fact that mothers are kind of the backbone of this movement. A lot of the last words from a lot of the Black Americans that have died have been calling to their mother. It's been mothers that have to deal with the fallout of their children dying. It's mothers raising their children to know that oppression is happening and how to fight against it. So we wanted to kind of center on the idea of the mother and the idea of the woman as like the background of the movement. So by putting a mother and her child on this horse that was previously occupied by a general of the Confederacy, we felt like we were reclaiming that imagery a little bit. I get a little verklempt when I'm talking about it. I mean, I'm a mother myself, so like watching those videos and I'm hearing those last words, it's too much for a mother to see.
The planning conversation that occurred for Nico and I to kind of create this idea for a time to rise was really inspired by us sitting down and kind of going for our walk down Monument Avenue and really diving into how each other felt, and because her and I do come from different environments and different cultures, and just kind of really being empathetic to hearing what each of us were experiencing in our own communities and what that was like. And so with gaining that empathy between each other and understanding, we really wanted to create an image that was inspiring. We wanted people to come together in solidarity. We wanted to portray and inspire some type of empathy as well as hope. Her and I were both in pain at that time, and still are battling with some level of pain and grief. But still, at the same time, we still have that hope, and we just really felt like we wanted to do something and say something. And so that conversation, it birthed a time to rise. And the title, it means that now is the time. There is no more waiting. Now is the time for us to do something.
Working with Ian was interesting, to say the least. We definitely bonded over food, thank God, because we had strong opinions. And sometimes our creative differences would lead us kind of at a standstill of how we were going to move forward in working out what we wanted this mural to be about. But thank God for good food, because we were able to get both. I think we were able to bring our ideas together perfectly to express what we both felt was important to us and communicate to others. I think that ultimately our conversation is very much reflected in, or our conversations are very much reflected in a mural that we are painting.
I mean, beyond like, obviously it's awesome to be painting in a museum, I would love for this to give a really solid kickstart to Mending Walls, to show that me never having met Joe Arnice ever before, to coming together, to doing this huge wall, and then ideally coming out with something that turns out amazing, can help kickstart what this sort of movement of Mending Walls is becoming, because it's going to be this repetition from week to week. They're starting a new mural, and want to give it a really strong start. And if I'm getting really ideal about it, if at all this can bring more attention, besides the aesthetic beauty of the mural and the meanings behind it, to actually propel forward any aspect of the Marcus Alert and the Marcus David Peters story. If that can be propelled forward and that can be amplified, and the injustices of that can be clearly shown, if I can be any part of pushing that towards a better end, then I'd be ecstatic. Yeah.
The meaning of this piece now in 2020 honestly means the same thing to me. I'm ecstatic that it's going up again because I know that people will have a different meaning behind it. I think that as a Black man, when I painted this, it really symbolized that difference of, you know, what the American flag means to me, as well as the Confederate flag means to me. But I know that others might not have seen it through that lens, and I'm excited that people might have the opportunity to see it through a different lens.
The world has changed a lot in 2 years, and the world has not changed at all in 2 years. And so I think for me, where my head was when I painted this is the same. And what I like is seeing that things is the wrong word. What I like is that I've seen people taking actions that they hadn't then, and that things that seem to be maybe more aggressively activist are not as aggressive anymore. I think for me, I've been an activist my whole life, and I've always tried to use my art to tell a story about what is possible. And I also am used to the fact that things can change slowly, and that it takes a while for real social transformation to happen. So I think what's exciting about this current moment is how fast things are happening. Of course, we're not done. There's a lot more work to do, but it feels like we're at a real historical moment of transformation that we have not experienced in a long time. And so I am glad that this piece remains relevant, and I'm glad that it maybe gave people a little idea of what they could do. I don't want to take any credit whatsoever for any actions happening right now, but I like the idea that visitors to the museum would see this piece and rethink the symbols and the history that they've been told, and maybe start that process of learning and of growing.
Knowing about the past is important for a few reasons. But mainly I want to point out that knowing about the past helps you to understand how we ended up where we are today. It helps you to understand where people are coming from, especially the Black community, when the Black community points out oppression, or any group who has been oppressed by that matter, it helps you to understand that it helps you to have empathy, rather, for that group of people. And it also helps us to not repeat mistakes from the past, to move forward in a different way. You know what has happened, and you know the consequences of what happened. So let's try to move forward in a way that will have better consequences for everyone.
So a lot of my work includes historical imagery because there are antecedents to the things that are happening today. And I think it's important to know that we don't have to invent that wheel. We don't have to take a risk in terms of, will this work? We know that protests work. We know that activism works. We know that social justice is important and that things will change, but we have to live through some terrible times, possibly, to get to those wonderful transformations. And so looking back at history is a way to get that inspiration for how to move forward today.
I think history museums can have a huge role in the conversations that people are having today. I think a lot of us complain that there isn't enough history in schools, or the right side of history in schools. And so there's a narrative that we don't get the true history in school. And so history museums are a good way to actually try to go find artifacts, try to go find neutral media sources that can tell you what really happened, or you can try to piece together for yourself what really happened. So I think history museums are kind of almost like the ultimate resource in finding out your past and your history.
I hope that the Mending Walls Project will help propel people coming together and wanting to figure out how to work together to move forward, correct the mistakes of the past. I hope that when people see all the projects, not just mine, but all of them, that they will be more open to getting uncomfortable and having those discussions that we tend to tiptoe around, so that we can actually connect on a personal level and really empathize with each other, understand each other's perspectives, no matter where you come from, which is, I think, is so necessary for us to make a positive change.
So with Mending Walls, one of the big things that we're trying to do is, after all of the art is created, holding civic talks that highlight the art, but also get into the meat and potatoes of what the art is about, and also carrying that conversation further. And I think art being the perfect catalyst to draw people in, it's also the perfect catalyst to kind of take that conversation to the next level.